Brain with lobes is your cerebellum. I'm going to go over this way. No, let's do this. We have an insula, which is one of our important lobes, the insula. There's the internal capsule, upper motor neurons, and caudate nucleus, which is the basal nuclei. From the cross-section, corpus callosum, lateral ventricle, the fornix, the pineal, thalamus, hypothalamus, and then pituitary. We then have the corpora quadrigemina, the cerebral peduncle, the pons, the medulla, arbor vitae, third ventricle, cerebral aqueduct, fourth ventricle. And if we put the brain back together again,
Looks like a broccoli.
looks like broccoli. I ain't eating that broccoli. The olfactory bulbs, olfactory tracts, optic nerves, pituitary sitting on top of the optic chiasma, midbrain pons, medulla.
It's clear, but it's too
Folds are folia. Folds are convolutions, longitudinal, transverse, lateral sulcus of Sylvius, central sulcus of Rolando. We have the soma, dendrites, axon hillock, the endoneurium, the axolemma, myelin, and the sheath surrounding is the neurolemma and our nodes of Ranvier, the nodes of Ranvier. And where would we find a terminus? This is a terminus and a neuromuscular junction, and this would be the motor end plate and synaptic bulbs. And for the spine, spinal cord, the epidural space, dura mater, subarachnoid space, pia mater, gray horns, gray commissure with the central canal. These are our posterior, anterior, and lateral columns. And ventral root, posterior root, dorsal root ganglion, spinal nerve. This is our white rami communicans. This is a sympathetic ganglion. And then this is our ventral ramus and dorsal ramus. So those are what we're missing from all these models, so I'll probably use a picture of that, is going to be the lacrimal apparatus, the lacrimal gland, the lateral canthus, the lacrimal caruncle, superior and inferior palpebrae. On the model, we've got our four extrinsic muscles: superior, lateral, inferior, and medial rectus, superior oblique, inferior oblique. And because we are lacking in the availability of models, and this guy is supposed to come apart, I have a feeling if I get this to come apart, it'll break. So probably using a diagram or a photo of another model, it will be the cornea, the sclera, as far as the outer fibrous tunic, the iris, ciliary body, ciliary muscle, ciliary process, and then the choroid of the uvea or vascular tunic, the ora serrata retinae, behind the ciliary muscle, the retina, and then on the retina, the macula lutea, and then the optic disc. And remember which fluids fill which area: vitreous in the posterior, versus aqueous in the anterior. Ear, the pinna or auricle, the external auditory canal, the tympanic membrane. Have to use a picture. These are missing on these models. The malleus, incus, and stapes in the middle ear. And then once we get to the inner ear, we've got that large model over here. We call this the bony labyrinth on the outside, membranous labyrinth on the inside, semicircular canals, vestibule with the utricle, and then saccule, and then the cochlea. And then also note oval window versus the round window. That's the oval one. Oval window versus round window. And
Doesn't get raped with pictures.
on the cross section of the ear, the scala vestibuli, scala media, scala tympani, the organ of Corti with the basilar membrane, tectoral membrane, and the hair cells. Get
Can you
it?
repeat that?
Got it. Scala vestibuli, scala tympani, scala media, basilar membrane, tectoral membrane, hair cells, and this is all the organ of Corti. The hand. So we're going to go to digiti minimi. There is the abductor, the flexor, and the important opponens digiti minimi. It'll really show up there. I may use the picture of the high quality model that I have or the diagram. And then on the pollicis side of it, very importantly, the adductor, flexor, abductor, and then the deeper opponens pollicis. And then if we can show it on these, again, probably go back to either a picture of the model that I have or the diagram from your textbook, from the lab manual, would be the interossei and the lumbricales The renal capsule, the cortex, the medulla, the pelvis, renal pyramid, renal column, renal papilla, minor calyx, major calyx, ureter, renal artery, segmental, interlobular, interlobar, arcuate, and then interlobar, lobular. The same would be for the vein, so it's interlobular, arcuate, interlobar, and renal vein. On the renal corpuscle, the afferent arteriole, the glomerulus, the efferent arteriole, Bauman's capsule, this is the parietal layer, this is the visceral layer, proximal convoluted tubule, distal tubule, JG cells, and macula densa cells.
What's the glomerulus?
The whole thing that we have on this model. There's our interlobular artery, afferent arteriole, renal corpuscle, which means this is the proximal convoluted tubule. So this swings around and goes down to, this is our descending, this is Henle's loop, to our distal convoluted tubule leading into our collecting duct. These are the peritubular capillary.